from?
This is a mobility routine for Miss Karen Tenzer. So it's important before any exercise that you do to warm up, to literally warm your body up and to get the blood pumping before you do any stretching. So something nice and simple. Running on the spot for a minute. Try and get your knees high, make it a bit more challenging. You can even flick your feet behind you. So we'll begin stretching out your quads. I recommend doing this for a minute. Get your arms moving as well. A minute of that. A minute of star jumps. So this is quite beginner stuff, but it's very important. When you're more advanced, you can move on to more difficult warm-ups like a minute of squats, or even just 20 squats, and maybe a few burpees as well. But that's for a little bit. So you're nice and warm, the blood's pumping around your body. Now, before any exercise, you want to do stretching, but it's important to do dynamic stretching, which means stretching while moving. This would be an example of a static stretch, not good before a workout. So the equivalent would be that. So you're stretching the same muscle, but you're doing it while moving. You've got much less risk of injury, and it's actually been proven that if you do static stretches before any exercise, you're actually gonna your performance will be poorer. So whenever you're doing stretching, it's good to maybe start from bottom, work to the top, or vice versa. So first thing, ankles. Just put your toes on the floor and roll them around, and it's amazing how tight your ankles can get. You don't really think about stretching your ankles. It's very important. It's also quite nice just to stand on the side. You might find that difficult at first. It will get much easier with time. You can even do the same thing, stretching the front side of your ankle. It's very important to stretch your ankles. Lots of movements use your ankles, and if you've got tight ankles, you're going to be doing the wrong movement. Next, your calves. From a standing position, just step back, not too far, until your heel touches the floor, and you can feel a stretch in your calf. Obviously, the further back you go, the more stretch. So just do it until it's not too painful, but you can feel a stretch. You may have already stretched your quads with the one we've just done. You can do that a bit more if you like. And as I showed you before, your hamstrings you can stretch like so. Next, we're going to open up our groins and hips. So first of all, up ahead of you, out to the side, keeping the rest of your body straight, and you should feel a stretch in your groin. Other way, the other leg, and then you can go the opposite way. So sometimes this is called over the gate. So sometimes you'll go over a gate that way, sometimes you go over a gate that way. So you're stretching up all your hips, waist, nice and easily. Shoulders, I like to do 10 forward, 10 back, and 10 to the side. That opens up your shoulders and chest. And I also like to do another shoulder stretch. Just straight arm, across your body, use your other arm to make it a bit more challenging. You should feel a nice stretch across your shoulder. I also like to grasp my hands behind me and try not to collapse your chest. Keep your chest up. That's a really good stretch for your shoulders. And you can actually do the equivalent one ahead of you, and that stretches you back a bit. And lastly, but not leastly, is your neck. Now you would have noticed that some of those stretches were what would be considered static stretches, and if you were listening earlier, you'd know that's not a good thing for athletic performance. So I wouldn't recommend doing all those stretches if you were going to be doing a big run or a big strength routine, but you're not at that stage yet. So stretching is more important than anything else you can be doing, more important than any strength or endurance routine. So I'm fine with that. What I think you should be working up to is probably the most important and natural human movement possible, is a squat. Now, a squat should look something like this. So the important things to know about a squat: your chest should be up, your feet should be shoulder width apart, your head should be neutral. You see lots of people doing that, it's not good. Similarly, you don't want to do that. You don't want your shoulders to cave in, you want your chest to be up. First movement is just your hips back. So it's like you're hitting someone with your bum behind you. When you do that to an extreme, you should feel a stretch in your hamstrings. And all you're doing is sitting down, staying your bum as far back as possible. You don't want your knees to come forward, you don't want your knees to cave in. If anything, you want your knees pushing out. And just sit down so that your hip crease goes below your knee crease, so that wouldn't be good. That's fine. That's also fine, but that's quite advanced. So I want in a couple of months to be able to see you do this. You notice as well that my lower back stays nice and straight. If anything, it curves concentrically. But this is very challenging, so I recommend that you start with a surface, so you don't need to go too low. So, shoulder width apart, bum back, hit the chair, and back up. Try not to be doing that. You want your chest to stay up. So all the power is coming from your thighs and your bum and your hamstrings. You're not bending your back, keeping your chest up. You may find it easier to actually start from the bottom position. So you sat down, you can use a little bit of momentum, so you can rock forward a bit. But the important thing is that the power comes from your heels, not from your toes. If you like pushing off from your toes with any squat, eventually you're going to do your knees and your shins a lot of damage. So, if you can do 10 of these quite easily, move on to a slightly lower surface maybe. Not sure if this is any lower. Start to do it slower. Start to think about actually doing a full squat. If you can't sit in this position for 10 seconds comfortably, then it's probably not advisable for you to be doing squats without this support. So really, in terms of mobility, if you can do squats, then you've improved. Now I just want to show you a couple more stretches because you said that you liked it, and it's a very good hip stretch. So this is called a half pigeon. The way you get into it, you go on all fours. You put one foot to the opposing hand. So I'm going to do left foot to right hand here. Put it, then put the same next knee to the other hand. So left knee, left hand. You're going to try and get your body straight, and you're going to get your foot as far back as it will go, and your arms as far forward as it will go, and relax. That's the most important. Breathe through your nose, relax, and you'll find a bit lower. The longer you hold it back, hold it at least a minute on each side to get a stretch for your hip. And I'd say that should take you 10 to 15 minutes a day, and notice the difference within about a week.
Do you do the pigeon on the other leg as well?
Oh, of course. It's always good when you're doing stretching to work on the side that's more painful more. So obviously it's counterintuitive. If something's more painful, you want to stop.
And that other stretch you did where you kneeled upon the footstool to...
That's really advanced. It's ideal to do it against the wall. You might find it easier initially to do it against this surface. So, on all fours, you put one knee so that it's adjacent with the floor and the surface, right against the surface as close as you can. Then you're going to try and get your other foot up. You'll find that difficult at first. Your hips will be very tight, and then the eventual aim is to sit up and then get your back as far back as possible. So you're nice and straight, and you're going to feel stretch all across your quad, all across your hip flexor, and that can actually help alleviate some back pain.
And how long should you hold that stretch for?
Ideally 2 minutes on each side. That's
2 minutes?
That's going to be impossible to start off with. So maybe 30 seconds one side, 30 seconds the other side, and repeat twice.
Great.
Eventually you want to try and do it against the wall. You know about
to relax.
child's pose. So you can do that with knees and feet together. You can also open up your knees, and that's going to stretch your hips a bit more rather than your lower back. And then you can even open your feet up, and that's going to, I find that really bad, that's going to really stretch your hips. I actually feel a few clicks there. Try and get your bum to the floor, try and shift your weight. You'll notice it works a slightly different area depending on if your bum's in the air or if it's low. I'll just play around with it. It's almost like an introduction to the splits, I think it is. And that's pretty much it.
And then relax. Just lay on the floor and relax.
But in terms of stretching, if someone in your position, you can never do too much. So try and do it
Mm.
as often as possible. Not just once a day, twice, 3 times a day.
Will
If you're
do.
bored, if you're watching TV,
Mhm.
try and think, how low can I go in the squat today? Or if you can even sit against the surface, how well can I imitate a squat? How close can I get my feet?
Mhm.
And then you just play around with it a bit.
Mhm.
Because this is a very natural position for humans, so if you can't do it, then there's something wrong.
Mhm.
You get, 70, 80-year-old people in China sitting like this all day. It's been shown to even aid digestion.
Harms your heart.
Again, and you see lots of people, even in Asia, doing it quite,
Almost going to sleep.
arch back.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's advisable. I think I try and encourage you to stay as upright as possible. Maybe even engage your core.
Mhm.
Yeah.